Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. We are glad to host you from different parts of the world. Cybersecurity has been a top priority for business of all sizes and industries. With the rise of ransomware, phishing, and data breaches, organizations are finding themselves in a vulnerable position. Today's session on cyber risk is everywhere. Where to look and what to look for will shed light on trending data breaches and how companies are doing things differently to tackle sophisticated cyber attacks. To introduce CISA is a forensics-driven cybersecurity company serving across a wide range of industries with a footprint in more than 35 countries. CISA has unique expertise in forensics, information, and payment security domain. Recently, CISA was elected as member of PCI SSC Gear Committee for the second time in a row. To introduce our speaker, Kaushik Pandey. Kaushik Pandey is Principal Consultant at CISA Information Security. He has handled several information system audits and has successfully implemented assessments program at leading banks, third-party processor, and different industries. He is also an authorized trainer for CISA's CPSI Payment Security Training Program. Now, going through the agenda, we'll be discussing about the current scenario. We'll be answering the challenges of cybersecurity domain. What are the need for current solution? And we'll be going through the question and answer session. Over to you, Kaushik. All the best.
So thanks a lot, Ashwini, and welcome all of you for today's session. Myself, Kaushik, has been rightly introduced by Ashwini some time back, and welcome to today's session that cyber risk is everywhere. Now, today, when we look at the market, when we look at the IT sector, what we see is that from virtual bank heists to semi-open attacks from nation states, last couple of years have been really rough for IT security, where we have seen more number of breaches, more number of cybersecurity attacks as compared to the digital innovation that has happened in recent past. Whether you take any of the breaches, whether you take any of the vulnerabilities, whether we are talking about, let's say, ransomware, such as, let's say, WannaCry, or we talk about, let's say, PayTia, or let's say non-PayTia, and all those types of different vulnerabilities, we always see that attackers, the hackers, are coming up with more and more number of sophisticated attacks every day. And organizations such as yours and ours are struggling each and every day to prevent our organization, to prevent our customers' data, which is for let's say, for the prima facie over here, which we have to secure, which we have to protect at the end of the day, where we are governed with so many legal regulations, so many legal practices, and all those things, so as to protect the customer's data. On that particular note, so many organizations today are struggling with implementation of the cybersecurity controls, of the cybersecurity practices, and they are not able to understand that which particular control to implement first, so as to secure their customers' data, so as to protect their organization. And that is what the reason for today's webinar is: to protect you, to protect your organization, to protect your customers' data from all of these, and which all security controls or which all security best practices will be best suited for you and for your organization. So, as rightly being mentioned by Ashwini some time back, that we'll be discussing about the current scenario. We'll be discussing about the challenges, or let's say answering the challenges, the need for the current solution, top 5 learning, and then we'll be having the Q&A. So you guys can share your questions at any time via the chat box, or let's say via the Q&A section, which is there on the screen, and accordingly we'll be helping you across the same. So let's start today's session today. Cyber risk is everywhere, which is of course our title of the entire webinar. And why exactly we say so, that cyber risk is everywhere? It's because in today's world, in the digital realm, what we talk about, the more you conquer and the more territory you must defend. It means that the number of, you can see the size of your organization, as soon as your organization size increases, as soon as, let's say, your organization expands its territory, as soon as it starts serving the customers across the globe, the risk surface area also increases in a direct proportionate manner, which has led to so many challenges across the organizations. Enterprises currently are facing around 1,000+ phishing attacks every month. And I believe that majority of us will know this, that phishing attacks have been the primary motive, or let's say the primary actors behind majority of the ransomware attacks which are happening today. And 50% of the companies are taking more than 90 days to basically discover even a cyber attack, which is because, let's say, their threat detection and response solutions inside the organization are not working adequately. And that is the very reason why exactly organizations are facing so much challenges. So the entire session of us, we have broken up into 3 parts. First, we'll be talking about the current scenario, the current breaches, the data breaches which are happening across the, we can say, industry, which will basically tell us, or let's say, which will give us the background about the market pain points. Now, once we have understood the market pain points, we'll be answering those challenges that, okay, why exactly are these breaches happening, or let's say, what exactly is the root cause behind these breaches? SISA, being a payment forensic investigator today, has, you can say, unearthed so many forensic breaches, has understood the root cause of so many forensic breaches, that we are happy to share those knowledge with you. And that is what something which we'll see in the next slide as well, where we'll be discussing at a very high level CISA's top 5 as well, which has helped the community, which has helped the IT community in so much manner. Once we have answered the challenges, once we have covered that, okay, why exactly breaches are happening, we'll tell you that, okay, what exactly is the need for solution and which solution to be implemented at the end of the day, so that you, your organizations, your customers' data is secured, and accordingly you can lead a secure path. If you see today's market, if you see today's cybersecurity attacks, they are getting bigger and more pervasive. If you see recent facts and figures, you'll see that around, let's say, 280 million of Microsoft customers record were disclosed, which includes email IDs, IP addresses, and support case details as well. G is a name which doesn't need an introduction. And recently enough, they exposed around the PII data of over 280,000 current and former employees. The credentials of 500,000 Zoom teleconferencing accounts were actually found for sale. And believe us or not, but it was being sold at just $0.02. That means that, okay, how much the data has gone cheaper, and how much, let's say, organizations, or let's say how much, let's say, these attackers, these intruders just want that particular data to be gone on the black internet, or let's say on the dark web, and accordingly anybody can use it for hacking, or let's say for any other malicious purposes. And if you'll see the recent one, the phishing attack that led to the protected health information of around 140,000 individuals, or actually medical patients of Imperium Health Management, which was exposed. And these many cyber attacks, these many, you can say, breaches, was basically the reason behind CISA coming up with their CISA's top 5 security learning, so let's say forensic driven learning, where we told that, okay, what all, let's say, are the major actors, major motives behind, let's say, these attacks, what are happening across the globe, and accordingly the solutions also have been given on the same. So if you'll see that today, when we're talking about cyber attacks, when we're talking about any of these cyber security attacks, the most common are basically the 8 types. That is the most common. We'll start with the malware. I think all of us know what exactly malware is. Then comes phishing attack, where let's say a customer, like let's say you or me, is made to believe that yes, we are interacting with a, let's say, a right website, or let's say a correct and adequate, or let's say an authentic website, but it's not. A ransomware, which again doesn't need an introduction today. They will encrypt the data and then ask for ransom to decrypt it. Then we have the denial of service, which impacts the availability. Then we have the man-in-the-middle attacks, which is basically that an intruder comes in between the traffic and accordingly tries to sniff and tries to, you can say, alter the payload inside it. Then we have cryptojacking attack. A cryptojacking attack is basically when, let's say, intruder uses someone else's computer as a botnet, as let's say, as a mean to generate the cryptocurrencies. Then we have the injection attacks, most you can say the famous one being the SQL injection, and lastly the zero-day exploits. So these are most common types of attack vectors which are available right now in the market, in the security domain, and are impacting each and every organization across the globe. And why exactly this is happening is because of the increasing digitization, increasing footprint of digital elements across the globe. If you'll see a recent case study from basically a Hootsuite, a particular US firm, they said that in the world, in the entire world, the total population is around, let's say, around 7.75 to 7.8 billion, whereas the urban population is around 55% of it. When we drill down more and try to understand the digital footprint out of the 7.75 billion, we'll get to know that the unique mobile phone users in this much total population is around, let's say, 5.19 billion, which is a pretty huge number, with the penetration of around 67% of the total population. The internet users goes for around 4.54 billion, and then the active social media users goes to around 3.80 billion. What exactly are these stats? These exact stats are telling us the digital footprint, the number of users who are available over the internet, who are using different types of connected devices, and accordingly their data is propagated across the globe, across the world as we speak. And organizations, many of the organizations think today that they will spend more and they will get more security. To give you a few breach case analysis today, let's say the recent cyber attacks which have happened in the last couple of years. Let's start with the Capital One breach. You'd not believe me, but Capital One breach happened because of, let's say, one of the former employees of a huge cloud security, or let's say a cloud solution provider. All right, one of the top cloud solution provider actually had a misconfigured AWS server, and accordingly they got compromised. Similarly, many of you might be knowing there's a particular thing known as the weather channel. Now the weather channel also got compromised via a ransomware attack. And again, as I told you earlier as well, that the ransomware attack happened because of a phishing attempt on that particular organization. Accordingly, they got impacted. But the best of it is about the US Custom and Border Protection. Now, US Custom and Border Protection, you can say, has a list of drivers, list of people who are, you can say, frequently traveling and all those things. The CBP, US CBP, they got impacted by a ransomware. Now, I'll not say the good thing, but the key fact over here is that US CBP never got impacted with a ransomware. It was their contractor, the Perceptix, actually, who got impacted with a ransomware. However, Perceptix actually downloaded, or let's say copied, lots and lots of these data on their own servers. And then Perceptix got impacted, or let's say ransomware attack happened on Perceptix. And accordingly, US CBP's data also got gone. And after that, of course, they terminated the relationship and all those things. But from this, you can understand that even the service providers are having such a huge impact on it. And that is the very reason why you will see that cybersecurity spending will be reaching around 123 billion in 2020 as we speak. And if you'll see the exact facts, then actually the global security revenues, which are indicative from 2019 to 2030, will increase from, let's say, from 100 or let's say $150 billion to around $200 to $250 billion by 2030. And that is the very reason why you'll see that information security spending forecast for 2023 will be surpassing the $151 billion, which will, let's say, showcase a growth of around 6.2% per year. And that is something which all of us can also understand because this COVID-19 impact as well. Because now majority of the things are going remote, majority of the things are going on the internet platform. And that is the very reason why the number of servers, the number of applications, the number of digital footprints will increase every day, or let's say every hour or every minute. And directly proportional to it, cybersecurity spending also needs to be increased every day. And that is the very reason why, if you'll see a recent case study from Flexera, they say the top 3 priorities today for every organization across the globe is that, first of all, is the digital transformation, which accounts to around 54% of their priority, of their top priorities. Then comes cybersecurity, which is around 49%, because of course both are directly proportional to each other. As I'm increasing my digital footprint, I have to increase my cybersecurity controls, my cybersecurity budget as well. And then they talk about the cloud first, or let's say the cloud migration, which accounts to around, let's say, 40% of the total value, including the improved customer experience and the automation, which follows later. But can we say that, okay, we'll spend a lot and then accordingly we'll, let's say, be more secure? That's not it. Because 50% of large enterprises are spending around $1 million or more annually on security, with 43% of them spending on $250,000. And why exactly organizations are failing? It's because they are not able to maintain the security at the end of the day. If you'll see, around 20% of them, the security vulnerabilities are unpatched. 40% have unmonitored endpoints. And the incident response, just forget it. The inaccurate incident response accounts for around 40% of the companies failing to actually, you can say, understanding that, okay, how exactly they have to respond to any of the cybersecurity incidents. So this is what exactly the organizations, the companies, the IT industry is facing every day, or let's say is facing as we speak. And that is what we can say has been a major drive-through for each and every breaches, each and everything what is happening across the world. So why exactly are these breaches happening? It's true that something's going wrong, but why exactly the cybersecurity program is not working? As we saw, right? We are spending so much on the cybersecurity controls, on the cybersecurity practices. But even then, we are not able to protect our organization. Take the case of, let's say, a huge hospitality industry, all right, including, let's say, Marriott. Now, at that time, when actually they got, or let's say they acquired one of the firms, it took around 3 to 4 years for them to even understand that, yes, they have been breached from the last 3 to 4 years. Means the attackers were sitting inside their servers, inside their organization for the past 3 to 4 years. And that was before the acquisition itself. Now, imagine such a huge organization with such a huge cybersecurity budget. If they cannot identify, then how exactly we can, let's say, manage the same things? And that is what is basically, you can say, the gist over here. So if you'll see that the lack of detective controls on living off the land attacks is basically the one of the most important, or let's say, why exactly the most important factor, why exactly these things are not working. 30% of the security agents are actually ignoring most of the alerts. Why? Because they are flooded with so many cybersecurity alerts every time, because your SIM solutions, your log management solutions are not configured properly. They are not configured to actually track or to actually alert only in the case of a cybersecurity incident, or whenever, let's say, a cybersecurity, you can say, threat is impacting. Lack of digital forensics readiness plays a very, very crucial role and is the median across all of these things, across all of these different domains. If you'll see, if you do not have, or let's say if you are, you can say, not able to understand that, yes, let's say organizations are impacting, or let's say organizations do not have a digital forensics team, or their service providers do not have a digital forensics team, so as to understand each and every cybersecurity threat, or the DNS logs, or let's say the events which are happening, then I'm sorry to say that, but yes, you are not giving a holistic security to your organization, to your customers at the end of the day. Low coverage of network perimeter and endpoints plays a very crucial role when it comes to the challenges which the organizations are facing. Scattershot collection of security data and poor analytics, and lack of real-time response capabilities. All of these account to why exactly the cybersecurity programs today, what you and let's say the other organizations, or let's say what our organizations have implemented, are not working today. And that is why you'll see that when the survey was conducted across the industry, at that time it was found that let's say 76% of the organizations said that finding a threat detection response is more difficult today due to sophisticated threats. The threats, the threat attackers, the threat agents, the hackers, the intruders have gone so much sophisticated that the SIM solution, the log management solutions are not able to catch hold of them. And why exactly is the case? It's because we are using a legacy old SIM solution, a legacy old MDR or EDR, whatever solutions you have in mind. And those are not configured properly to actually alert you in the case of such, we can say, breaches, such incidents, such threat actors being exploiting your organization. So if you see, based upon the facts and the figures, around 34% of the volume has increased from a sophistication perspective of threats and the attackers. The threat detection response, or let's say the threat detection workload, has increased by 70%. The attack surface grown by 16%. Manual processes at organizations have grown by 13%. You can have the threat detection response tools have increased by 17%. And organization who doesn't have the skills for appropriately sized cybersecurity staff is around, let's say, 8% of this. And that is what actually is giving the motivation basically to the hackers. And that is how you will see that the hackers attack every 39 seconds on an average, which basically leads to around 2,244 times a day, which is quite a huge number as we speak. So what exactly are the, you can say, are the pointers over here? That the attack surface is increasing, and there are so many obstacles in managing cybersecurity practices too. And what exactly are those? The alert fatigue. You are getting so many alerts and you are not able to respond to them. You are not able to even understand, okay, what exactly is a particular cybersecurity alert. Difficulties in managing the in-house SOC, because again, at the end of the day, each and every organization has an expertise in doing something. One particular, let's say, entity will be a merchant. They will be having an expertise in being one of the top merchants of the world. They might not have an expertise in managing, let's say, a SOC solution, a security operations center. Why? It's because whenever, let's say, even the management will be looking for investment, at that time they will always think that, okay, I have to first of all grow my business. That's my topmost priority. That's where I have to be number one. And then later, and then after that particular point in time, I will think of the cybersecurity, about the IT security and all those things. Because once my business grows, only then I can support my internal stuff, my internal people, my internal organization, my internal IT security controls. If I don't have a business, I cannot do that. So there are huge difficulties in basically managing the in-house SOC. The integration and scalability challenges, the application monitoring syndrome, and the poor incident response. These are huge obstacles in managing cybersecurity today. And that is the very reason why organizations are facing so much bottlenecks in, let's say, understanding, or let's say even responding to these types of alerts, threats and all. Which brings us to one of the finest solutions which we have right now in the market, that okay, what exactly is the solution if we have so many things, or let's say how to protect our organization. Because if you see the current scenario, the breaches and all, so many breaches are happening across the world with market pain points, with so many challenges. Why exactly the breaches are happening? Because of the alert fatigue, because of the organization don't have a dedicated SOC solution, don't have the expertise in SOC and all those things. And that is the way reason why exactly all of us, all of our organizations are in need of a solution. So how exactly we drive our, you can say, research is based upon our clients. We have around, let's say, 1,000+ customers across 45 or let's say 50+ countries across the globe. And whenever we are performing an assessment, whenever we are performing a log analysis, whenever we are, let's say, interacting with them, we always, let's say, get hold of their pain points, always get hold of their, what exact challenges are those guys facing. And that is how, let's say, we improve our security posture, and accordingly we improve our customer security posture as well. And that result you will see in today's solution as well when we give it to you. So our organizations, our customers are transforming cyber defense with basically the managed detection and response solutions as we speak. And what exactly is this? It's such that the governance around 360 degree, where it covers the business data, the users, and the assets. One thing to be kept in mind over here, that many of the organizations think that, okay, all of the assets for their organizations are same and they will keep it in the same category, which is not true. You will be having a DMZ, you will be having a, let's say, a middleware, or let's say middle servers, you will be having internal servers. You might be creating blue, red, green zones or yellow zones, something like that. Based upon that, you have to define the asset category as well. And that's how the monitoring and the incident detection and the response needs to be driven every day. And believe me, guys, it's every day and not just a single day's job. The detect endpoint attacks in real time without signatures. Again, it's required for each and every organization. The response to critical threats, but in a faster manner. Why exactly faster? Because if it's not faster, then accordingly, let's say an attacker, an intruder might be sitting inside your organization and you will have no clue about it, which will basically reduce the dwell time with integrated detection and response solutions. So if you see the best practices across the globe, if you see many of the, you can say the best practices, including things from, you can say the CIS, NIST, SANS, and many other benchmarks, they are always going in two forms. First of all, they are saying that, okay, how exactly you can improve the detection of threats, detection of vulnerability, detection of, you can say, the challenges inside your organization, and how soon can you respond on that particular threats as well. And that's how we have framed this particular thing as well. So when I'm talking about detection accuracy, first of all, I have to start with endpoint. The endpoint detection response should be in real time at all the times. The threat intelligence has to be in an agile manner at every point in time. Otherwise, it becomes quite challenging for organizations to even detect these types of attacks. The network traffic analysis plays a crucial role, because if you do not have a network traffic analysis, if you are not, let's say, analyzing your DNS logs and all those things, then majority of the threats you will not be able to detect at the end of the day. Even though the log monitoring, so that it can shorten the list of priority issues in a moment, and the digital forensics. which I told you earlier itself, which plays a very crucial role. So whether, let's say, today you might, might have seen many different feedbacks from industry benchmarks or let's say Gartner and many things, right? So basically they started with an SIM solution, then they talked about that, okay, now we have to increase it more. So let's say we have to increase the cybersecurity controls more. So what we can do, we can look at the MDR. And tomorrow, let's say they will come, or let's say they have already come up with the notion known as the XDR as well, the extensive detection and response, right? So these things will always, you can say the naming conventions and all those things will change every day. What we need to make sure is that to protect each and every asset inside my organization with respect to the latest cybersecurity threats and vulnerabilities. And how exactly you can do that is basically if you have an exact mapping of each and every different types of IT domains, or let's say the assets inside your organization, starting with respect to, let's say, network. Now, if let's say you are able to manage, monitor, and secure the network, then what exact security will it provide to you? First of all, it will help you in managing the lateral movements. It will help you in managing the spoofing attacks. It will help you in managing the exfiltration of data as well. That if there's an exfiltration of data, then of course it will be, you can say, somebody or the other will be able to detect and alert based upon the same solution. And then if somebody is trying to scan your network for vulnerabilities, then of course that will also be alerted. And accordingly, let's say you will be able to protect it. So that's your network, which plays such a crucial role. So if you're able to protect your network, you will be able to protect at least from these many threats, or these many vulnerabilities, whatever is happening. Then let's talk about the users. Now, how exactly users can impact? Malicious insiders. If you'll see the, let's say the breach statistics, or let's say the breach statistics across the globe, you'll find that around, let's say, 60 to 70% of the breaches that are happening across the globe are happening because, let's say a malicious insider or a credential theft or anything like that. In 2019 and 20, a breach happened across the hospitality industry, in which around 500 plus million of records got compromised. And you will not believe it, but it got compromised because of, let's say, of the credential compromise of two of its individuals. Two of its individuals' credentials got compromised, and accordingly 500 million records got compromised just by, let's say, compromising two user accounts. And that's how you can say that the credential theft will play a very, very crucial role over there. The account compromise, the anomalous behavior. Okay, if you are able to, if organizations are able to manage this, then of course they'll be able to protect it. Then let's come to the third domain, which is the deception. Many of the times, the intruder, the hacker, is actually present inside your premises, is actually present inside the organization, inside the server, but we never see it. But we never even see that, okay, let's say that particular attacker is there. And that is the reason why, if you'll see that based upon one of the IBM security, you can say, researchers, they say that the average time to identify and contain a breach, both the identify, which is the dwell time, basically the identify and contain, okay, the average time to identify and contain a breach was, in 2019 it was around 259 days, 259 days, and in 2020 they are saying is around 287 days. These many days organizations tend to take to actually, let's say, average, the organizations tend to take to basically identify and then contain a particular breach at any point in time. The security automation, which is deployed, is across 55% of the organizations. And if you see, financial organizations are one of the most impacted organizations across the globe. So that is where, let's say, this deception comes into picture. And all of these are actually lying somewhere or the other inside your IT assets, and we have no clue about it. So deceptions can happen in the, let's say, in the form of a decoy shares or decoy files or decoy users or decoy host. They are just lying over there, but we are not able to detect them. We are not able to prevent our organization from them. And then last but not the least is the endpoints, where a particular thing might be present like a fileless, let's say a malware or a ransomware or an exploit, or let's say a malware coming into perspective. Now, these things actually lead to giving a holistic approach towards security best practices inside the organization. So if you are able to cover your network, your users, your deception, and the endpoints, then accordingly you are giving your organization a holistic security approach. And once you have, let's say, covered the length and the breadth of your IT assets, of your organizations, of your scope, then at that time, once you get an alert, then you have to respond accordingly. So attack reports around, let's say, you have to, let's say, organizations need to have, let's say, an automation with dashboards, with an enterprise-wide navigation. The remediation has to go ahead with the block standard and advanced attacks across the environment. And the response optimization has to be there based upon the optimization of the incident response workflows with automation. And that is what actually gives the birth for an MDR solution, a managed detection and response solution, which helps each and every organization across the globe to protect their critical IT assets, to protect their people, processes, and technology. And that is why when we say that, okay, there has to be a holistic resilience, we are talking about a company-wide and org-wide implementation, which basically encompasses the people, processes, and technologies. They prioritize and deliver security and privacy controls with respect to enterprise risk management framework. I believe majority of us will be aware about the enterprise risk management framework, because that is basically the driving factor behind implementation of controls, behind prioritization of security controls, and even with respect to the ranking of your IT assets, because everything is dependent upon your enterprise risk management framework. Setting up the security risk appetite thresholds also plays a very, very crucial role. Why? Because if, let's say, you are having, let's say, an immovable assets which is, let's say, not impacting the customer's privacy or the customer's confidentiality or the integrity or the availability of the data elements, anything like that, then of course, let's say, if there's a risk to it, I will not pay much attention around it. But if I have a particular asset which is having a high risk ranking, because again, my customers might get impacted or my organization's brand might get impacted, then of course, I have to have a look at it. That is the very reason why I need to have a risk appetite threshold being defined. So that if it increases, I have to treat that particular risk. If it doesn't, then okay, I can accept this particular risk and move on. Now, that gives a holistic, you can say, approach for an organization towards an MDR solution. And what other factors are driven behind this MDR is basically your digital transformation maturity, where advanced analytics and machine learnings are actually applied so that, let's say, or which will result in a preventive detection. What do you mean by preventive detection? It means that, okay, a particular alert, a particular attack is actually detected, and within a particular, let's say, an RTO and RPO being defined across the organization, right? You get the solution, and accordingly it gets implemented on that particular server, on that particular asset, IT asset, which determines the relevant threat attackers, or let's say actors, and it automates the threat reporting response as well at scale, which helps us in deploying an integrated defense line across the organization and access to a unified platform to stay secure. And if you see, that is basically, let's say, had been one of the primary reasons why exactly an attack, why exactly let's say hackers have been exploiting, have been you can say impacting organizations across the globe. Because if you'll see today, the challenges with the threat protection were basically that there are more point solutions, which basically misses the point, right? The endpoint protection itself, just the endpoint protection, it's really not enough. It's really not enough to actually secure our infrastructure completely. And that is the very reason why we need, or let's say organizations need, a unified detection approach with an automated response. And that is what is giving the birth, that is what is giving, let's say, the inception to our managed detection and response, which is MDR. So if you see its components, it's real-time graphical user interface with a responsive design, supported by digital forensics, where let's say a 24/7 forensics team is actually analyzing all the logs so as to understand that, okay, it's a false positive or not. If it's, let's say, an actual attack, an actual threat actor actually trying to exploit, then again, responding to that particular thing to the organization, accordingly helping them as well to, you can say, mitigate that particular attack vector. Tracking security events to decrease the dwell time. Now, what exactly is the dwell time? I told you that around organizations are taking around 287 days in 2020 to identify and contain a particular cybersecurity breach. So if, let's say, your organization has an MDR, which is basically configured to detect and we can say get you response across, let's say, wide variety of threat actors, then accordingly it will impact in decreasing the dwell time. The brand monitoring, the incident response, the file integrity monitoring, the log monitoring, and automated alerting engine. These are the primary, you can say, components behind a managed detection and response solution, an MDR solution, which helps organizations in making sure, or let's say in, you can say, securing their organization's IT assets, their people, process, and technologies, which again gives a holistic resilience and also, you can say, helps us in the digital transformation maturity as well. Because if you see today's market, you cannot just have, let's say, updating, or let's say you cannot just keep updating the policies, the signatures, and all those things. You need an AI and an ML engine, an artificial intelligence and a machine learning engine, so that organizations are able to even secure themselves from zero-day exploits as well. If you remember, the top 8 cybersecurity attack vectors, which we discussed initially once we started the session, was basically the malware, the phishing, the ransomware, the denial of service, man-in-the-middle attack, the cryptojacking, the SQL injection, and zero-day exploits. Now, zero-day exploit is something which can be detected and prevented using these AI and the MLs. What about ransomware? Ransomware is something which can be detected and prevented using your DNS logs, using your DNS traffic logs. Accordingly, you can blacklist. Accordingly, you can see that, okay, where exactly is it attempting the connection, and accordingly, organizations can save themselves. Because you will always have, let's say, dark web IPs, you will always have blacklisted IPs, and accordingly, as soon as you see that there is a connection being attempted from inside of your organization to a command control server, which is, let's say, in some other organization, or let's say in some other domain altogether, then accordingly, let's say, your organization will be saved. And of course, if, let's say, let's say, misses any of these things, then the digital forensics team over there is actually sitting, who is analyzing these types of false positive, or who are analyzing critical security logs, so as to understand if they see any of the let's say attack patterns in the logs via the forensic analysis, via the memory analysis, and all those things. Accordingly, they will raise alert, and the organizations will be safe, and the organization will be secure. So today, if you say that, let's say, MDR is it the right solution? Absolutely, it's the right solution. But just by deploying an MDR inside the organization might not be able to help you. You need an expert, you need an expertise in even managing that particular MDR solution, in managing the incident and response. There should be someone or there should be some organization who should be able to help you across, and then accordingly, let's say, help you close or mitigate those vulnerabilities as well. If you see one of the, let's say, one of the biggest breaches which happened, not the biggest, because the biggest was around, let's say, Yahoo, with around 3 billion records getting exposed. And 3 billion records basically were all the email IDs, passwords, and everything which basically Yahoo had. But again, a 40 million scale breach which happened, okay, of a major merchant in US. If you see that particular breach case analysis, you will get to identify that there were three solutions which were deployed by that particular merchant, which were behaving as an SIEM or MDR and all those things. But nobody responded on those alerts. Nobody took any action on those alerts. So just by, you can say, raising the alert might not serve the purpose. If somebody is not responding, then you should have an RTO or the RPO defined. And accordingly, if nobody is responding to the alerts being raised, then of course it has to be escalated further. Otherwise, the alerts will just keep, you can say, coming up inside your mails, or let's say inside your SIM solution, inside your MDR solution. You will be spending millions and millions of dollars to buy more licenses, because again, majority of them work based upon, let's say, the number of logs, or let's say the capacity of it, right? And accordingly, let's say organizations will be getting impacted at the end of the day. So what exactly you have to, let's say, focus when you are coming up, or let's say when you are focusing on an MDR solution, that you have to focus on accuracy of the data, accuracy of the systems, accuracy of the alerts, which will accordingly result in efficiency. And once both of these things are coupled, both of these things are married together, okay, it will result in the cost reductions. And accordingly, let's say your organizations will be secured. On that particular note, we'll just open the forum for any of, let's say, the questions and the answers. Accordingly, we'll be able to answer them. Please use the chat or the Q&A section for any of the, let's say, the Q&A or any of, you can say, the feedback which you have.
Thank you, Kaushik, for a wonderful presentation. We have few questions. The first question is how to monitor security tooling health and functionality to remediate or coordinate remediation with system owners.
Can you please repeat that or give me in chat somewhere? Yeah.
Sure. How to monitor security tooling health and functionality to remediate or coordinate remediation with system owners. This question has been asked by Pratyush Veluru.
Okay. So, so basically, let's say when you are trying to monitor the security of your systems, maybe by performance monitoring or something like that, then if, let's say, I take the specific case of performance monitoring, then as soon as there's a sudden spike in the CPU usage, there's a sudden spike in the RAM usage and all, then you can not 100%, but you can assume that yes, there might be an attacker, there might be an intruder somewhere or the other, which might be trying and exploiting it. Now, how exactly your own tool can prevent from it? You need to define lots and lots of use cases. The use cases, of course, you or let's say your vendor, your service provider needs to define lots and lots of use cases. And those use cases actually you need to study, you need to go through, and accordingly give an approval to your security vendor to, you can say, implement at the end of the day. Otherwise, what happens is that your security vendor will just go ahead and you can say do whatever they want, or whatever they like, which will have, let's say, a legacy old, you can say, use cases or legacy old signatures, legacy old policies, which might or might not be even suitable or applicable for your organization. In that particular case, it will not, let's say, help you in any sort whatever. So that is the reason why, let's say, you need to subscribe to these whatever breaches, whatever threats, whatever things are happening across the industry. Accordingly, ask the vendors to develop use cases around the same. If they have already developed, well enough, you should let's say have a team over there so as to analyze those use cases and accordingly give the approval. If not, if let's say this something is not happening, all right, what we strongly suggest is to perform a red teaming activity so that you yourself can get an understanding that if an attacker tomorrow tries to intrude into the organization, then how exactly my organization will be able to respond to it. So a red teaming activity will be very much, you can say, useful.
Thank you,
Ashwini?
Kaushik. Yes. We have another question. How can we send alerts with details of mitigation steps to designated personnel for identifying incidents?
All right. So basically, first of all, we need to send the alerts. Now, the alerts will be something like, let's say, a particular IP, the source and the destination, that, okay, this particular source is impacting, or let's say this particular source is trying to impact your web server, your application server, or database server, whatever. This is the vulnerability which is trying to exploit, or let's say which is trying to impact over there. And whenever, as soon as you identify the vulnerability, you will be having the mitigation steps as well around it. Now, when I said that, okay, how exactly I should communicate? Now, it depends upon the criticality of the vulnerability and the criticality of the asset. Now, let's say in a case of, let's say, an organization which is having the web application server in there, of course, the DMZ in the DMZ zone. Now, at that time, and that particular organization is processing, let's say, more than, let's say, 100 million transactions, maybe every day or something like that. In that particular case, as soon as these particular critical vulnerabilities are identified, like let's say Apache Struts framework vulnerability, like something which happened in Equifax, right? And the attacker exploited. As soon as I identify, my MDR service identifies vulnerability, I should quickly, or let's say my alphas, or let's say my MDR vendor should quickly pick up the phone and accordingly escalate it to the topmost management which is there across that organization. And in the meantime, we should communicate all of these solutions via the emails at all the time. Of course, the emails have to be secured as well. And majority of the times, what we suggest organizations to do is that to have PGP secured encryption, or let's say GPG secured encryption, so that if let's say that particular organization is already impacted or already breached, or let's say already security has gone for a toss, then it might be possible that the emails have also gone for a toss. That is why if you are having a PGP encryption in place, then of course only you will be able to read those messages, or let's say their incident response team will be able to read those messages, and accordingly they'll be able to tackle it out. Ashwini?
Yes. We have another question. How do you use DNS header analysis for detecting ransomware or APTs? How do you detect insider threat through SSL header and analysis?
Okay. An insider threat through an SSL header analysis, you will get to know based upon the payloads which are there inside, let's say that particular, the entire packet. When talking about the DNS, what I'm working on is that with respect to the blacklisted IPs, because organizations tend to have blacklisted IPs which are basically across the world, let's say across Miami, Brazil, Russia, and all those things. And accordingly, let's say we prevent and detect, you can say, cyber attacks using the same.
Okay. We have one more question. Do you already have a fix for you ransomware? What will you do if one of your client got affected?
With respect to ransomware, what exactly, or recently, our forensics team was able to help one of its clients, one of our clients, in actually detecting a ransomware and accordingly, let's say, prevent it. So how exactly it happened was that particular malware was not able to convert itself, or let's say was not able to encrypt the files. and accordingly we identify the particular malware, and then that particular organization was saved. Now, let's say a particular organization has got impacted because of ransomware. Then sooner or later, you cannot do anything. The preventive secure practices, what you can follow for ransomware is to have backups, is to have as many backups as you can, all right, so that your availability is not impacted. Once, let's say a file has been encrypted by a key which is only by the intruder, then in that particular case, you have, let's say, very less chances of actually getting back apart from paying the ransom. Because even if, let's say, you pay the ransom and then accordingly you get the decryption key, but there are high chances that particular intruder might have created a copy of the data and they might be selling it off in the dark web sooner or later. So if it has been encrypted already, we are, let's say, an AES 128 or AES 256-bit key from the intruder, let's say from the attacker, then you will have no save. To return the availability, you will be required to basically create as many backups as possible and have it in different geos altogether.
Thank you, Kaushik. We have one more question. You said 90 days to identify breach. Is there any prevention methods to know immediately? Any automated approaches with AI and ML?
Yeah, absolutely. So the MDR solutions, not all of them, but many of them provide AI and ML based learning as well, which basically, as I told in the starting, are monitoring the processes, are monitoring the services which are running on your system, and accordingly, they'll be able to raise an alert as soon as they identify that, okay, there's an additional service, there's an additional process, there's an additional thing which has come inside the network. That's one of the things. Second is that something which you can do is to create let's say these many of these solutions are trying to do is create a network map. Now this is not the nmap scan which we do, but the network map helps identify organization that, okay, which system is connecting to which system. Now that is something which let's say you need to do initially once you set up that particular network map solution. One of I think vendors, or let's say one of the solutions right now in the market is Color2 as well, which is a Bangalore-based organization. Then we have a few US-based firms as well who are helping in it. So basically, it will identify that, okay, which particular system is communicating with which on which particular port, on a particular service, and all those things. Once you have finalized, or let's say once you have agreed, authenticated, and authorized that, okay, this is exactly the network map. After that particular time period, as soon as your MDR solution looks at the network map and see that, okay, now an extra connection is being attempted from maybe inside or maybe outside the network as well, it will quickly raise the alert, and accordingly you will be able to prevent it. So this is one of the solutions which organizations are implementing today so as to prevent. Ashwini?
Yeah, thank you, Kaushik. Thanks for this wonderful Q&A session. We have no questions as of now, and we are left with 2 minutes. So request to audience that kindly take a survey post this session. And if you need any session material, kindly connect me at ashwini.kumar@sisainfosec.com. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you for joining us. I wish you a fantastic day ahead.